of which we were in the VIP lounge that you did not hear about until we started filming here. So I'm excited to bring you home with us, right here, our new home. With me, I have 3 members, filmmakers, of the film Dummy that is showing in HollyShorts. We have, and I got their pronunciations, I think, correct. Let's see. Lukas Hassel, the director. Andrew Kaberline, writer. And finally, Ben Andrews, EP, executive producer and actor. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
3 for 3
Excited to be here.
on the pronunciation.
We also have HollyShorts 2019 screenplay winners.
Yeah, well, you're 2019, correct?
I'm 2019, that's true, yes.
Okay,
I have
cool.
Yeah.
exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
so fun. So
Yeah.
you're veterans of the festival.
Yes, in a way, exactly. And that's how I came to be with this particular project.
Oh,
Because
amazing.
my script won then, and I directed it with Ben's team up in Seattle, amazing people up there. When it got to Andrew's scripts, Andrew didn't want to direct it
Yeah.
necessarily, and they asked if I'd be interested in directing this past year's winner.
Incredible. And I can already tell from like these speeches and conversation before we even started streaming that you guys have a great collaboration. So I'm excited to dive into it. Fortunately, we only have 10 to 15 minutes. So before we dive into the nitty-gritty, can we talk about what Dummy is about?
I feel I'm going to throw that over to this gentleman.
Yeah,
Who wrote it?
sure.
Yes.
Dummy is on just a base level, is a movie about a very lonely man who is a CPR instructor who has a change in his home life when one of his dummies follows him home.
Wow.
And what it is on like a bigger idea for me is that it is a movie in that sort of genre of like inanimate object horror that decides not to have the inanimate object be really quippy and really like a loud personality, but let's actually like really look at just a simple CPR dummy that can't move or do anything.
Cool.
And yeah, trying to ground it that way.
Before we filmed
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm
like, oh, was that not clear? Uh-oh.
Wow,
Yikes.
profound.
Yeah.
I love it. And so because they're such short interviews, I always ask the filmmakers on an intake form, what were some of the unique things about the film's production? And here I have the partnership between the Summit and HollyShorts. What is the Summit?
Okay, so yes, and I'll try to do this as quickly as
No
possible.
Yeah.
problem.
So
We've already wasted minutes just saying those sentences.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
So probably about 12 years ago, I had just started getting into filmmaking in the state of Washington, and in an effort to kind of build the community there, because the film industry in Washington is anemic, to say the best, or the least, whatever. But the point is I met these festival directors at South by, that's Theo Dumont and Daniel Soul, and I was just a filmmaker who had started the Seattle Film Summit, and I'm like, I want to give opportunities for filmmakers and crew and talent in Washington to be highlighted in LA. So we developed a partnership, and it's as simple as me and my team pick, once we get to the finalists of the screenplays, we pick the screenplay winner. Then in the calendar year, the filmmaker will fly into Washington. We will film their film for them. It's a grant.
Cool.
And
Very cool.
and then it gets an automatic premiere in the following year at opening night, which was Thursday.
Fantastic. That
Yeah.
is so fun too, because what a way of, so CFA is all about community building and education, and I think that ties in really well to both of those things. The community that I already mentioned between you guys, the collaboration, it coming about on set. You're a writer, you've passed off your script to a fantastic director sitting beside me, and then your cast in it. What was that collaboration like during pre-production, because you're also an executive producer? So switching between hats or the conversations you were having,
Well,
what was
it's
that?
interesting because this is actually the first thing I've directed that I didn't write. So I'm a writer, actor, director.
Cool.
So this was a real experiment for me as well, and my sense was I had to find my angle into the script. That was the realization I had, that maybe I wasn't as much of a filmmaker as I thought I was, because I was like, if I don't get the angle, I'm not sure I can direct it. So I remember mentioning to Ben, can I talk to Andrew about sort of what his intention are, and then we can sort of hone various things together. And I remember one of the big things we had initially was that you hadn't quite come down on either side of whether the main character was going to be a hero or a villain
Yeah.
of sorts.
Oh,
And so
wow,
together
interesting,
Together, I felt like we needed to have an angle on that
Yeah.
to construct it properly. And I just needed to hear sort of how flexible Andrew was about his script, and thankfully he was an amazing collaborator.
Oh,
and I think
thank
we
you.
met several times in New York, and notes back and forth and suggestions back and forth, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, this is a script I can direct. Now I get it.
Yeah.
And so the helpful thing was I had worked with Ben and his amazing team before, and
Cool.
so I think Ben is an underutilized actor, as it turns out. So one of the roles just screamed Ben to me anyway. And I mean, casting can be tricky, and because it would be long distance casting anyway, having somebody that I knew I could trust sort of already without doing a whole casting process was sort of great. So I was like, Ben, you're Dwayne, whether you want it or not, you're Dwayne.
Love it.
And then it was a matter of figuring out who our lead should be, and we found this local actor that was fantastic, Umberto Lenzi, and he was such a gift. He came in an early reading of the script, and then we were investigating maybe getting a bigger name of sorts from LA and so forth, and in the end we just always came back to Umberto, who just nailed that.
It always seems to happen that way, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So exactly.
It's like, whether it be a DP or whether it be your actor, it's always like, no, we're going to come back to them, and like, you just think about them when you go to bed at night, you're like, it needs to be them.
Exactly,
Like,
and that's a note to actors watching this or listening to this, like, do readings, because if you're in on that early enough, then it'll be tough for them to sort of jettison you later, because you'll be in their heads.
So true.
Umberto had that vulnerability that we're all looking for.
And that's exactly the right point, that then after we heard him read it, I couldn't not see him in that part thinking about it ever again. And it's like, well, there he was.
I think that's great advice, by the way. And because I think this, especially with self-tapes now, it can be so difficult to like feel motivated to just do another one and like go through that journey. And so hearing that from, you know, a filmmaking team who has a film at a festival, I think is just so powerful. How did you want to portray the relationship between the dummy and the lead?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, that was going to be the good thing about working with a dummy is that they're not going to insist on green M&Ms in their dressing room and all kinds of nonsense. But the bad thing is you also can't adjust them very well. So it was a matter of figuring out it was basically, it became a question of tone. Like, how eerie do you want it to be? Right? When you have an inanimate object doing nothing. And so the tone I think we landed on was sort of an in-between. It's sort of horror light, but it could be something else. Yeah. And it was just a matter of mainly figuring out how our main character responded to it and when we would cut to like a close-up of the dummy face doing nothing. Yeah. So it's about really, it became a great dance between myself and Ryan Purcell, our DP, of like, how to film the dummies and when you reveal the dummy in a close-up, when it was a wide, and sort of steer really the viewer's perception of like, we're getting more and more inside the dummy's head. Mm-hmm. And as we're raising sort of this somewhat eerie quality, are they for good or are they for bad throughout, then you would adjust the camera work according to that.
Yeah. And what was like the most important thing? Because with all short films, there's sacrifices involved. What were like the things you were like, I'm not sacrificing that? Whether it be a part of a script or an emotion or a visual cue that you wanted to have or the size of the dummy, I'm not sure. But what were the like, I'm not sacrificing that?
Well, I mean, oddly enough, it was like for me, it was like a small thing. You guys could speak to what you ended up seeing in the film, but for me, the thing that I just saw visually that sort of wasn't written in the script per se was in the climax of the scene. I'm not going to give anything away. Yeah. But there's like a whole end scene that was probably the trickiest scene for us to film. Got it. There was a lamp that I wanted over the dinner table. And it was such a bizarre request. Mm-hmm. But from the beginning, I'm like, we need to get this lamp. So in the first meeting we even had,
you're like,
I was like, this is a lamp we need to get. Because there was emotion I wanted out of that. Love it. And it's one of those horror tropes with like a swinging lamp with light and dark and so, but I felt it needed a heartbeat of that. Yeah. And so although it was a nuisance to set up in a wonderful executive producer Monica's house, we managed to, she's sitting right off screen over here, we managed to get it up and I think it really added to that final scene.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was what drove the motion of that scene too.
Yeah.
Like,
and
it's
I love that
crucial.
you said heartbeat because we're talking about someone performing CPR.
Yes.
So I love the beauty of like adding the
very
life
deliberate.
of
Unintentional
the dummy
puns,
to the heartbeat of the shadow. And as a DP, I'm like, this is great. What about for you, for the script, when you brought it to Lukas, were you like, this is like the core of this, please do not change this, do whatever you want with this?
I think I was very precious at the beginning. There was a like, here is my little baby handing over to you. I think that by the end, I would have been willing to cut anything. I was like, you don't want it to be about dummies anymore? Get rid of them. I would have like, and that was a very, very nice learning experience for me to kind of naturally over the entire process lose that preciousness, and that like is very freeing. Yeah.
And Ben, what is like the biggest takeaway you want the audience to have for this film?
It's a great question, but I'm going to answer the question that I have for myself, but I want you guys to know that, which is, this has probably been my favorite short film I've ever done. and it's really about going back to Umberto, who is a relatively inexperienced actor.
Beautiful.
The first day, the first 2 hours he's on set, he's terrified.
Right.
And to see how quickly he trusted Lukas and like bloomed in front of us, and his relationship with the dummy that is unspoken and there and precious. Like, I want to tear up just thinking about the magic. And Lukas is, we brought Lukas back because Lukas to this date is my favorite creative collaborator, and he just spoke to this because he handed his baby over, and Lukas elevates the set and the creativity, and you just feel like, okay, I'm in the right group. I'm with family, so it's our baby now. So all that's really the most important thing.
Lucas,
well, then
professional
to wrap it
script
up,
nanny.
I want to ask something about that. Umberto, the first 2 hours on set, what was the most important part about making him feel home on set?
Well, it was a matter of sort of adjusting my language as a director straight off, as opposed to coming out with a direction like, oh, just be more natural, which is the most unhelpful. So I'm a fairly perceptive sort of people person, and so you just have to find your way in, and finding understanding that, making him understand that I trust him and that he should be able to trust me. I'm not out to get anyone or to be like that loud director who's like, action, show me what you got.
Yes.
So there's just, you can do that with certain people, and so you adjust to who you work with, and that comes from being an actor myself. I know what it's like being on the other side.
Right.
Some directors are actors directors, and other directors are camera directors, and they are all about angles, and they barely talk to you. And so for me, I think I understand what an actor may need, and it's usually that they can trust that they're not going to be hurt by anyone, and the more they can relax, the better performances you're going to get out of it. And as Ben said, it was like one of the, to me, it was like, even if the film didn't do anything, or if it ended up being a hot mess, which you never know when you start, the one thing that was going to take away that we made this gentleman sort of have 3 fun days is like the leading man of a short, and he's wonderful in it. So hopefully many more opportunities.
I can't wait till we can't afford him anymore. Yes.
What a great moment that will be.
Yes, exactly.
Now, you guys screened on opening night, which was this past Thursday. But because of the relationship that HollyShorts has with BitPix, your film should be available as a virtual festival as well, right?
Correct.
So everyone can go check out Dummy. And thank you guys so much. We have, once again, let's pronounce these names correctly. We have director Lukas Hassel.
Nailed it.
Andrew Kaberline.
Got it.
Writer. And Ben Andrews, executive producer and actor.
Mine's easy.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Later.
How many minutes did we make?
This has been another special episode of the Cinematography for Actors podcast. We are here live at the 19th annual Oscar qualifying HollyShorts Film Festival through August 20th. Follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and if you are here at the festival, come up to the VIP lounge and say hi.
We also want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our sponsors, which we have so many to help us put this together, and that is Apogee Film Tools, Roscoe, Lightstone Rentals, Canon, and First Mile Technology for the awesome Wi-Fi hookup. As a special gift to our CFA listeners, we have partnered with a company called We Make Movies, you may be familiar with them, to offer discounted production services, including access to comprehensive production insurance and workers' comp for your next shoot. Visit wemakemovies.org/insurance and use code CFA23 on your next intake form for 10% off your quote. We are making filmmaking more accessible. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the Cinematography for Actors podcast. Thanks all. Bye.